Joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator, thanks very much for being with us. A big day on the world stage because the president says we're back, we're open to talks with Iran, we are contributing to the COVID, $2 billion to the COVAX vaccine plan that the UN runs, and now the Paris Climate Accords. How difficult is it going to be to develop a plan to appreciably reduce emissions by 2030?
Well, Andrea, it's great to be with you. And as President Biden said, America is back. We're back in standing with our Democratic allies against authoritarian regimes. We're back to engage Iran to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. The Trump reversal of that policy was a disaster and left us much worse now than we were 4 years ago. And we're back in terms of asserting American leadership on climate change, which is not only a threat to ourselves and the planet, but also an opportunity, as President Biden so often says, for more American homegrown jobs. And that is going to be the major focus of the president when it comes to the next round of legislation. Right now, we're dealing with the emergency relief to defeat the COVID virus and keep the economy afloat. Next is about building back better, and that includes modernizing our infrastructure and dealing with climate change.
So what does the U.S. need to do to restore its diminished role, and particularly on climate change?
Well, first of all, we had to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords because Donald Trump had isolated us by taking it out and really ceded leadership there for other countries, including China, which has invested huge sums of money in clean energy, energy efficiency, battery storage. So we have to get back on the world stage, and that today was the first step with President Biden. But then we need here at home to back up our words, and that means making investments in modernizing our grid. Look what's happening down in Texas right now. Not only are they seeing the ravages of climate change with these huge drops in temperature, but the fact is that they were unprepared in terms of modernizing their electric grid. We need to do that in concert with putting more Americans to work in good-paying jobs when it comes to building out our clean energy infrastructure. And that is something that President Biden laid out in great detail during the campaign, and we're now going to have to translate that into policy action. He's already taking some steps through executive action using federal agencies and the purchasing power of the federal government to get a start in this area.
Now, you brought up Texas and the horrible weather reactions, the problems that they've had with the electric power grid and the water and everything else because of the weather. What's your reaction to Senator Cruz's little abbreviated trip to a resort in Mexico?
Well, first, Andrea, it was incredibly disappointing to see the response of the Texas political leadership, not focus on trying to solve the problem in front of them, not recognizing that they had failed to heed previous federal warnings about what would happen if they didn't improve their grid, but to try to actually blame the power outage on the issue of clean energy and green energy, when in fact it's all the reverse. Look, Senator Cruz is somebody who's always the first to point the finger at others, but here he was abandoning his state of Texas in an hour of great need while people were desperate for help. And instead of being part of the Texas team to help those in need, he decided to head out of the country to a resort in Cancun. That is not leadership. We've seen President Biden step up and say that FEMA is engaged with helping Texas. And, you know, while President Biden was there for Texas, their own senator was not.
Also today, obviously you were there on January 6th, Capitol Police are announcing it's now investigating dozens of police officers for their actions on January 6th, and 6 officers have been suspended without pay. We know of the heroic actions by many sacrificing being injured, and of course, Officer Sitnik dying as a result of his injuries. But what's your reaction to this investigation, to some others on the police force?
Well, Andrea, first, I'm glad you underscored the bravery we saw from so many Capitol Hill police officers that day. We've all seen the tapes, and their efforts helped save members of Congress in the House and Senate and protected other staff working at the Capitol. Of course, we need to do a thorough review of everything that led up to that awful attack on January 6th and what went wrong in terms of defending the Capitol. And obviously, we need, in my view, to look at what resulted in President Trump unleashing that violent mob on the Capitol, but also the defenses here. And that includes looking into accountability of members of the Capitol Hill Police Force. So this is something that obviously the leadership there has decided to take action on as they review the conduct of certain members. And that's going to be important. We need an accounting of everything that happened, but that doesn't take away from those Capitol Hill police officers who were on the front lines and putting themselves at risk that day.
Indeed, they are real heroes. Thank you so much, Senator Chris Van Hollen. Thanks to you, and have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.